Guess who's back? Yeah. So Swamp Bike, which was sold a couple of months ago, and sold it off. You know, kid was happy with it. I saw him buzzing around on it a few times. Swamp Bike. One of you guys found it on Copart, and I guess, well, obviously he crashed it. But I guess this was enough damage to total it, which is not surprising because gas tanks are unobtainium. And I kind of couldn't help but go and buy it back because I know what's all in this bike, and I know that a 1,200 mile or a 5,000 mile motor is worth buying a $1,200 bike for. So, by the way, on Copart, because of all the fees, it ended up around $1,200 to get it back out of it. So let's go take a look at what all happened to it. So first of all, somewhere between when I sold it and it died, it got a really poorly done tail tidy instead of the factory tail with sheet metal screws holding this little license plate bracket thing, which is foldy, exciting, and some LED tails or LED strips for turn signals. Actually, let's see how he wired it up. Yeah, I literally just rolled this out of the van, so didn't even get the key out of it. Now I did. So obviously the tail is rashed. How did the wiring happen? Well, that's an interesting grounding choice, as is that. But at least he used factory connectors, so that's something, because at least he didn't cut up the main harness. But anyway, so interesting choice. But this bike is a walking advertisement for installing frame sliders, because while this was clearly a bigger crash, and possibly two of them, I'll more on that in a second, while this was clearly a bigger crash, the tank wouldn't have had nearly the amount of damage, the radiator wouldn't have taken damage or as much damage if it had frame sliders. But that said, obviously the bar, lever, bar end, grip, stuff like that is completely fucked. The mirrors were both broken. The cluster survived. The turn signal obviously did not. The chrome ring got some rash, as did the chrome ring on the headlight itself. The forks and fender, so fender got a scratch. Right fork leg took a little bit of a slide. I'll take it apart and see if they're actually straight or not. Obviously tank damage. The rear set and shifter decided no mas. The side stand got a big bit of grinding off of it, and yeah. However, also this is new. This was not present. There's a random nick in the middle of the tail. The exhaust and the rear brake lever and this, I think this was a separate incident. I think he might have clunked it on the right before clunking it on the left. Yeah, see, the bar end had damage, the lever end was gone. Fender got a scratch on this side. Fork got some scratches. So in 2 months, give or take, that I've not had this bike, it managed to hammer itself to pieces. So the question is, what's the plan? And because it would be a salvage title, which I would then have to do a bunch of stuff to get the advanced inspection to turn it into an R title, I think this frame is just done, or this frame is track bike, or something along those lines. The radiator, it doesn't look too hammered and it's not leaking, so I may be able to just bend up. Well, yeah, it's pretty hammered right there. I may be able to bend it back to return it on there, or I might just have to grab another one. The tank, there's really no good things that can happen to it. Hopefully it's not leaking. Yeah, it's peeling all over the place. Hopefully it's not leaking, because you know, nastiness. It sat outside for a while because you can see the chain is getting some rust spots. Chain was fresh though, so because I put it on there, so I feel like that's just spray it up and do whatever. So I don't know. I am definitely not making it orange a second time. I don't have any orange tanks left. I actually don't have any tanks left at this point. I may just grab the motor. So a couple of weeks ago I blew up one of my track bikes, so I may just need a motor for that. We'll see if the forks are straight. The brakes are still brakey. Yeah, they feel okay. Probably a little bit of air from laying on their side or whatever. The pipe's kind of worthless, more or less. I would say pretty worthless at this point. So I don't know. I know I don't want to rebuild it again. Maybe I do. I don't know. I'll have to do some math and see how what I can do about it. Because I'd have to find a good titled frame, which I don't have an abundance of right now. I'd have to find a tank. I'd have to find probably a radiator, bodywork, you know, bar, headlight, stuff like that. That's all cheap and easy, but just disappointing. So if you're trying to not end up like this guy, who probably turned a not a big deal crash into a totaled bike, get some frame sliders. They really do help. And get decent ones like, I don't know, RNGs or Woodcraft or Vortex or something like that. But yeah, hopefully the forks are straight. I don't know. They look straight. It doesn't even look like it was that big of a hit. It looks like it was like a fold up, fall over that then just was aggravated by like being towed around and whatever. I don't know. Anyway, weird continuation. Didn't think I would be continuing the swamp bike story, but I guess we're continuing the swamp bike story.